So we're going to start. We're going to do first a chazara on that which we learned the Yom Sheni, the Shabbat Kodesh. We did the Zayin Amud Aleph from the top, yeah, and we're going to continue now, yeah. So says the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Avu, says Rabbi Avu, Gadol Yom HaGeshamim Tchiyat HaMetim. It's greater Yom HaGeshamim than Tchiyat HaMetim, right? That means one more time. You have two on the scale. Yom HaGeshamim, Tchiyat HaMetim. It is greater Yom HaGeshamim Tchiyat HaMetim. Yeah, the ilu Tchiyat HaMetim la Tzadikim. Tchiyat HaMetim is only for Tzadikim. What does that mean? Rasha. Does he get Tchiyat HaMetim? Bahaki, what's it in your Gemara? Does the Rasha get Tchiyat HaMetim? No, Kaddish. Yeah, he has to pay triple for the burial plot. He stays there forever. Yeah, for eternity. He says, Vilu Geshamim. But for Geshamim. Everybody benefits, right? Everybody benefits Geshamim. Correct? Who doesn't benefit from rain? Everybody benefits from it. Rishaim, Tzadikim, everybody. This argues on Rav Yosef. Why? The Amar Rav Yosef, what says Rav Yosef? Mitoch shehi shekula ketchiyat hametim. Which means, here I have Geshamim, here I have Techiyat hametim. Beforehand, he said Geshamim was greater than Techiyat hametim. Because Geshamim was for Tzadikim, right? Geshamim was for Tzadikim and Rishaim. And the Techiyat hametim was only for Tzadikim. Now we're saying, oh, Shakul, equal. Yeah, Shekula. So he said, Shekula Techiyat hametim, since it's equal to Techiyat hametim, Keva'ua b'Techiyat hametim. So they instituted it in the Beracha of Techiyat hametim. Okay. Next, Amar of Yehuda says of Yehuda, since we're already talking about the greatness of Geshamim, Gedulat, right? Galut Geshamim, how great it is, that it's even greater than Techiyat hametim or not, right? But according to everybody, it's either greater or equal, but it's not less. Says the Gemara Amar of Yehuda, says Rav Yehuda, Gadol Yom HaGeshamim Kayom Shenitna Bo Torah. It's greater the day of the Geshamim, just like the day which the Torah was given. Yeah, Gadol, listen carefully. Gadol Yom HaGeshamim. That means imagine the day of Matan Torah. You know what they done in the history of all mankind? You're telling me now, Gadol Yom HaGeshamim, which is mashma that every single time it rains, it has the same power, yeah, as just what? As Yom Shenitna Bo Torah. We're saying something incredible. No. The first shita is Kayom, the same thing. The next one, David, is more. 1 minute, twice, right? Amar Gadol Yom HaGeshamim Kayom Shenitna Bo Torah. Look how great the day of rain is, just like the day that they gave the Torah. It says in Pasuk. This is in Ha'azinu. What does it say in Ha'azinu? Ya'arov kamatar lihi. Tizal katal imrati. What does that mean? Ya'arov kamatar lihi. Remember that the matar is the rain. Right? Lihi is the Torah. Ven lekach el Torah. Right? Shneimar. Yeah? Okay, so I have to teach it to you now. Yeah? What does that mean? What does that mean? That you see that Moshe Rabbeinu was coming and saying that it should start dripping, it should start drizzling rain. Ya'arov kamatar lichi, the learning of the Torah, which means that Moshe is equating the limud Torah to Yeridat Geshamim. So it's a saying, Yeridat Geshamim and Torah. Rava says, no, Yoter, greater. So just if you want to remember it, the way that we started was, Rabbi Avu says that Geshamim is greater than Techiyat hametim, argues on Rabbi Yosef that it's equal to Techiyat hametim. Then Rabbi Yehuda comes and he says that Geshamim is equal to Matan Torah, the day the Torah was given, and Rava comes and he says, no, it's greater than the day the Torah was given. Shneimar Ya'arov kamatar lichi. What does that mean, Ya'arov kamatar lichi? It says, Mini tle bemi. Who's the one that's going depending on whom? Do you walk with your son, or your son walks with you? Yeah. So it's very good. So what does it say? Heveomer katan nitle begadol. The katan always goes with the gadol, not the gadol with the katan. Okay, so therefore the katan is always nitle in somebody greater, right? Are you walking with the Katan or Katan walking with you? So you're the one that's walking with him. No, I'm not going with you. Why? Because that's not an age. The concept bagadol. Okay, nikuda. Now we have a contradiction. Rava Rem. Yeah, not Rem. Yeah, Rava Ram. Yes, the contradiction. What was the contradiction? Ketiv, it's written Yarov Kamata. Right? Yarov Kamata Lichti. Uchtiv, and it's written Tizal Katalinati. It's the same pasuk. Yeah, Yarov Kamata Tizal Katalinati. Right? So it says like this. So what does that mean? Is the Torah, right? Nozelet, is it like Tal? Okay, because that's what it's going to be like Tal. Right? Now we know that the Torah was also compared to the Matar. So is it Yarov Kamata Lichti? Is the Torah compared to Matar? Or is the Torah compared to Tal? Now, obviously, there's a difference. Tal, it comes benachat, it's very good. Matar, we said, was much more bekoach. So what is it? Is it Matar or is it Tal? So says the Gemara, Im Tamil Chacham Agunhu. If you're going to tell me that it's a Tamil Chacham Agun, right? What does that mean that it's a Tamil Chacham that's acting properly? So then it's Katal. So then it's going to come and it's going to act to him like Nachat, right? Like Tal, right? And you could learn with him. You could learn from him. In love, and if not, or feu kamatar. So then you have to actually hit, you have to kill him, right? Just like the Geshem, which is coming down with a lot of strength, which means you have to be very, very strong and don't learn anything from it. That is the first concept of Rab, the contradiction, whether the Torah is equal to Tal or the Torah which is equal to Matar. Right. Anya, we learned in the Braita. Rabbi ben Omer. Rabbi ben used to say, "Kol haosek b'Torah lishma, Torato na'aseh lo sam chaim." A person that learns Torah lishma, which means he's learning Torah in order to be mekayem mitzvot Hashem. So therefore, what? Torato na'aseh lo sam chaim. The Torah becomes for him a sam chaim. What is that? It's like a medicine of life, a remedy of life. Sam Hayim. Yeah? So he says, Shnema, it says in the Pasuk, Etz Hayim hi lamachazikin ba. What does that mean? It's a tree of life for those that grab it. The Omen, and it says, Rifut tehi lesharecha. Right? What does that mean? It should be a refuah shlema for sharecha. What is sharecha? Taburecha, your belly button. Which there we speak about the taboo, the belly button, taboo, right? Which is the right. That's where you're getting your sustenance. The omen, and it says in a pasuk, ki mosei masa hayim, right? Just like a baby gets its nourishment from the belly, from the what's it called? The umbilical cord. Thank you. Umbilical cord. So he says, ki mosei masa hayim, right? The ones that find me will find life. However, though, if you're going to learn Torah, which is not going to be lishma, it becomes for him veneno. You know veneno is? No. Venom. Yeah? Sam amavet. Sam amavet is ra'al. Right? Ra'al is poison which kills. What is aro? What is arifa? Ben arifa. El ariga, the killing. You're going to do a right glarufa. Manachal by the nachal. Remember, how did they do the glarufa? They used to come and chop off the back of its head. That's the way they used to do it. Yeah, that's what it was. ISIS, but from the back. Yeah, not from the front. Yeah, it's fine. So this is the Gemara. Okay, so here you see about the concept of learning Torah Lishma. Once we brought down the concept of Tamil Chacham Agun and Tamil Chacham Sheno Agun, now we're bringing down the entire concept of Osek Torah Lishma Velo Lishma. If you learn Torah Lishma, Sam Hayim, Lo Lishma, Sam Amav. Okay. Elmaleh Rabbi Yirmiyah le Rabbi Zera. Says Rabbi Yirmiyah to Rabbi Zera. Yeah, Leiti Mor Litni. Bechavod. Listen to Torah. Yeah, give us a Torah. So Elmaleh comes and he tells him, no, I'm very weak. My heart is weak. There's a whole concept here when you say dafka the heart. But chalash libai velo yachil. Right? Markish chalash. He can't teach. Right? So teach us Haggadah. You don't want to teach us halacha. It's very deep. But at least give us Haggadah. Elmaleh, he says, this is what Rabbi Yochanan says. What does it mean in the pasuk? Adam etzas. He says that the human being is like etzas, is like a tree. So he says, human being is a tree. Since it's written by a fruit tree, you have to eat it and you're not supposed to cut it down. Right? That's what you do for a fruit tree. A fruit tree you eat, you're not to cut it down. Right? Even it says by atzes rak are from non fruit trees. It means a fruit tree, it's like a tree which does not bear any type of fruit. You could cut it down. So what's the case? So im tamich chacham agun. Well, again, if he's a tamich chacham agun, mimenu tochal, eat from him. Ve'oto lo tikro, don't cut him down. And if not, then don't even bother learning. So again, we go back to the tamich chacham agun and the tamich chacham she'enu agun. Okay, fine. Amar Rabbi Chama, says Rabbi Chama Rabbi Sanina. What does it mean in the pasuk barzel bebarzel yachad? What does that mean? The one piece of metal with another piece of metal, they're going to sharpen each other up. A yechadet, yachad here is like to be mechadet, to sharpen. Right? To tell you, ma barzel zeh echad mechadet echad. Just like a piece of sakinim. When you take knives, how do you sharpen them? You sharpen them one on the other. They're going to sharpen each other with halacha. Okay? And this is where we stopped yesterday. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, says Rabba Bar Chana, Lama nimshelu divrei Torah ke'esh. Why are the words of Torah compared to fire? Why are the words of Torah compared to fire? He says, Shneimar, it says in the pasuk in Yirmiyah, Halochot devari ka'esh neum Hashem. My words are compared to fire. So says Hashem. So says Rabbi Baruchana, why is it that the words of the Torah are compared to fire? He says, you know why? Because it says in pasuk, Halochot devari ka'esh neum Hashem. My words are like a fire. All my devarim are like fire, says Hashem. Yeah? Lomar lecha, to say, ma'esh eno dolek yechidi. When you want to come and you want to start a fire, it doesn't start, right, by itself. It doesn't start yechidi, right? You need 2 or 3 pieces together, and then it catches fire. So, tu tibre Torah, and mitkaimim yechidi. When you want to learn Torah, you can't learn on your own. Torah is not learned on its own. Exactly. You have to come. Exactly. Yeah. What do? You come, everyone together. Because that's what he says of Yosef bar Chanina. My dear, what does it mean in the pasuk? Cherev el abadim beno'alam. What does it mean? Cherev el abadim. Cherev is a sword. El abadim beno'alam. So listen carefully. Listen to the pasuk, right? A sword will come to the badim. We're going to learn which means by themselves. When they become foolish. Cherev al soneen shel tamidei chachamim. A sword on the enemies of tamidei chachamim. Remember, whenever it says the enemies of tamidei chachamim, usually it's a euphemism for tamidei chachamim themselves, but they don't want to mention it, so they can say it's a cherev on exactly the exact opposite, right? So it says, klomar on the tamidei shofkin bad bebad b'Torah, that they're learning by themselves the Torah. And he says, velo, and not only that, not only is it that they have a cherev on themselves, right, because they were learning by themselves, ela shem tapshim, become a tipesh. Yeah, you know what tipesh is? Yeah, there was a famous chazan in Nefutzot Yehuda, Gibraltar, in Parashat Vayishlach. Yeah, in Parashat Vayishlach, right? What happened is that there's a pasuk Vayishkon Israel. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to read it twice with different ta'amim. So he went, he read it once, and then all of a sudden he went and he started it again the second time around. And somebody says, hey, you got the wrong place. It's not like, like sometimes they correct you and you don't. So the Hazan, the Bal Koreh, he turned around and he said, Hamor tipesh. And then he turned around and he continued. Yeah? Tipesh. Yeah? Hamor tipesh. Yeah, that's it. Shneimar, as he said, v'noalu. What does it mean, v'noalu? V'noalu means evil, that they become tipshim. V'lo od, and not only that, ela shefotin, but they sin. Meaning, when they come and they learn by themselves, they're sinning. Ketiv achab, as it's written, v'noalu. Ketivat, and it's written, asher noalu, asher chatanu. Right? Asher noalu, asher chatanu, which means that the avilut, which is brought down by sin, is the same tipshut, which is brought down by sin. The Vaitema, you could say from another place also, when it says the Noalu, that has to do with tipshut on chet, Noalu saret soan hituet mitzrayim. So you see from here, we're talking about the Noalu, which is the tipshut, which is bringing from somebody that's going from the path. So look how bad it is to learn by yourself, right? First of all, you have chet, you have the penalty of the sword. Second of all, right? Badim we just said was by yourself. Right? That's what it says. It says here, Badim is Lashon Badaim Mechazvim, Shebodim Dvarim Milibam, that they come and they are saying something from their hearts, right? Which is actually like a lie, right? But that's what it means, because they're coming and they're not saying the truth. Meaning when a person comes and he learns by himself, he doesn't come up to the truth. Now, why? Which we're going to see in 1 minute, right? So what is he saying? First of all, you have the chet. Second of all, mitapshin. And third of all, chutim. 3 different things. If a person learns by himself and he's not learning bechavruta, he's not learning with everybody together. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, lama nimshelu divrei Torah ke'etz? Why is it that the Torah is compared to wood? Right? As we say, it's chayim v'machzikim, but why is it a tree? Why is it a tree? Lo man lecha to tell you. Ma etz, just like the etz, katan matlig et hagadol. When you want to start a bonfire, what do you do? Or even a barbecue, what do? You take the small little pieces of wood. You put that on fire, and then you come and you light everything up. Right? You take the small one, and that lights up the big ones. Katan malikat hagadol. So too, Talmidei Chachamim, ketanim mechatnim et hagedolim. The smaller Talmidei Chachamim, they sharpen the bigger Talmidei Chachamim. Vehainu, and that's the explanation of Damar Rabbi Chanina, harbe lamati merabotai, umechaverai yoter merabotai, umitalmidai yoter mikulan. Right? I learned a lot of Torah from my rabbis, and from my friends more than my rabbis, and from my students more than everybody. Yeah? So I will tell you over a beautiful Dvar Torah that I once heard in the name of, I think his name was Rabbi, I think his name was, that he said a beautiful Dvar Torah. What is the explanation when we say that I learned a lot of Torah from my rabbis, more from my friends, and from my students even more? And he says, we think that the explanation is that a person comes and he learns from his rabbis. And then if he would have learned from his friends, he learns more. Because with your rabbi, you don't have all those opportunities always to ask questions. You understand? Because they're not always accessible, right? And therefore, you can't ask everything from your rabbi. You have to choose what you're going to ask your rabbi. Yeah? However, with your friend, you could ask whatever you want. You guys are learning in the same place, same at the midrash. So you learn and you start asking questions back, forth. Your students, they ask you all the questions. However, though, right, really be'emet, it's supposed to be all of them. What does that mean? I learned a lot from my rabbis. Not only did I learn from my rabbis, I learned from my rabbis, but I learned from my friends, even more from my rabbis, but I still learn from my rabbis. And then with Talmidai, I learned even more than everybody else, which means I learned from my rabbis, but I learned from my friends more than I learned from my rabbis, but I learned from my students even more than I learned from my friends. And now it comes out, I'm learning from everybody, right? Not just from one. Meaning, if you have a choice, you're going to say, who do you learn more from? You say, no, I learn from everybody, right? But just which one has a greater success? So now this, when we're going to finish off with this Gemara, right? Which I think is actually a beautiful Gemara. The Gemara says there's a contradiction. Remember, we like a lot of contradictions. So we're going to bring a contradiction. Rabbi Chanina bar Papa Rameh. So Rabbi Chanina bar Papa comes and he asks the contradiction. Yeah, and he says like this. Ketiv, it's written, right? Likrat Sameh. Hetayu mai. What does that mean? To somebody that's thirsty, bring him water. Right? What does that mean? What do you bring to what? You bring the water to somebody that's thirsty. One more time. Likrat sameh, towards someone that's thirsty. Hetayu mai, bring water. So you have to bring the water to somebody that's thirsty. Uchtiv in another pasuk there, right, which is in Perek Nun Hey, also in Yeshaya. Aleph. Hoi kol sameh lechu lemayim. This is a very famous pasuk, which means that anybody which is thirsty, take him to the water. So therefore, who's going to? You're taking the one that's thirsty to the one of the water. Okay, you're not taking the water to the one that's thirsty. You're taking the one that's thirsty to the water. Is the Gemara. Im talmid hagun. What does that mean? Now until now we're always talking about the talmid chacham, and now we're talking about the talmid. Meaning we were always focusing on the rabbi, on the teacher. Now we're focusing on the student. And this is to answer up your question, Doc, beforehand, you asked. Yeah? If it's a talmid hagun, which means if the talmid is a proper talmid, so then, right, which here it says it's naeb ma'asav, which means he's got very good actions, right? He's not, you understand, he's got good midot, he's got everything, right? That's called talmid hagun. So likrat sameh tayumai. So then it's a mitzvah for the rabbi to teach him Torah, which means if you have a talmid hagun, teach him Torah. Yeah, even if you're going to go to him, but you teach him Torah. But if not, which means the talmid is not a gun. So then the talmid has to come running after the Rav, and the Rav doesn't give it to him that easy. Which means it all depends on who's the one that's asking for the Torah. You understand? If it's the one that's asking for the Torah, you know he's very agun, so you give it to him. If not, let him run for it. Let him show the beliefs.